Welcome to the Women of Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Calder-Hume.
Hello, I'm here with Sarah Hughes today. Sarah, hi. Thanks for
joining us. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Okay. So I found you on Instagram through a post that you were tagged in. And I have just been following your journey, and I would love for you to share with us a little bit about what you're doing in your life right now and what ambition looks like for you in your life.
Yeah. So right now I am a student in grad school. I'm going to UVU to become a marriage and family therapist. But ultimately my goal is to become a sex therapist, and it's kind of just like an add-on to that master's degree. And for me, it was kind of funny when you started talking, or when I read the question about ambition, I was like, what the heck even is ambition? Like, cause
it's a tricky thing.
Yeah. I kind of went to the end goal, like, am I successful is kind of where my brain went. And I was like, I don't know, but when I looked it up, it was kind of interesting. It said like showing a strong desire and determination to succeed. And then I thought it was hilarious how like the words that were like similar to that were like aspiring, determined, forceful, and pushy, which I definitely think I am.
You and me both.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, I can totally relate to this word. And I think like, for me, it's just like having that, I don't know, desire, and that like, I really, really do want to succeed at what I'm doing. And so I would say that that's it, is having that component of determination to like do whatever you feel like you're called to do,
Do you feel like that's something that you've always had? Like, is that an innate inborn ability? Is that something that you've curated in yourself?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, honestly, because my dad, he came from a really, really rough background, like literally abuse of every kind. And with that, I feel like he kind of took his family to the next step, like from, the back streets of like Baltimore to like Utah, where like we don't have to fight gangs on a daily basis. And so I feel like he kind of gave us, he was always like, we're going to succeed. Like his favorite quote was the one that's like, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, And so just like, we've always kind of grown up with that. But I also grew up in a town where I never knew anyone with a master's degree. I never knew anyone with like, I don't know, like only men were successful. Women were like just kind of expected to do the conveyor belt life. And that's so great for some people. But for me, I think it was a step-by-step process on really deciding like what I wanted and how to kind of get there. And that determination is piece by piece,
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think we expect men to be ambitious, and it's a positive thing when you use it for a man. Yeah. And then when you see an ambitious woman, there's so much judgment that comes with that. And then I know I've talked about this with so many women, and I would say they are absolutely ambitious. And if you use that word in reference to them, they're almost offended. Like, yes, I'm not mean. I'm not, someone who goes and, sticks it to other people for my own success. And it's like, whoa, no, like I admire you because you have goals and you're working towards them. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it's just one of those really gendered things that, even people who it's accurate to identify with can't see that in themselves. And so I want to, like, I'm here. This is why I'm doing this, because I do have that ambition, and I'm coming to accept that piece of myself, not as a negative thing, but just as a part of who I am. And I need to like see other women who have this piece and like what they do with it. And it doesn't have to equal money or fame or even job or, big accreditation, but like something. I just need those examples in my life. So you're one of those people for me. So thank you.
That's so nice. Like, I totally agree with you. And it was so interesting. Like, even in the definition, it's like pushy. And I cannot tell you how many times in my life I've been called pushy and bossy and like, Sarah, you have way too much energy for a girl. And it's just like, Yeah. It's always like, what are you going to even do? Like chill, And so I totally agree. And it's so frustrating and it's so sad. And I love that you're doing this for that purpose, to help other women feel like it's not a bad thing. And for us to feel like, hey, like this is actually a powerful, beautiful thing. And it's actually not uncommon, and it's okay to call it ambition.
Yes. I love it. So tell us about your life right now. What has your ambition looked like in the past, and what does it look like right now?
Yeah. So I'm trying to decide where to start probably in the past. So I wanted to do, I was more into performance when I was younger. So theater, dance, music.
Awesome.
And I just did a lot of that. Like I did voice lessons. I was in choirs. That was kind of my end goal. But when I was like around 16, I went to like a seminar and decided I wanted to do political science, actually. And I ended up doing school. But more recently, it's come into this family and relationships. So in my undergrad, a huge part of that was I actually created a birth class for women to empower them during birth. Is kind of the goal. It doesn't matter like what kind of birth you have. It's more because I would hear women all the time come to me. Like one girl, she was outside of the US. She came into our class and she was like, yeah, I was in a lot of pain during birth. So I asked for something to help me. And they shot me in the back and I couldn't feel my legs. So no one had to explain to her what was going on. And so there's like a huge problem with a lot of things in that. And so part of my ambition was like, I can do something about that. So we created a course to educate women to use their voices, to ask questions, to feel empowered in that. And so that was a huge part of this. Going into what I want to do, sex therapy, is like, hey, I'm already on the one side of it. Let's go to the other side, the beginning parts, and empower women to use their voices there. And so that's kind of what it looks like right now, is that desire to succeed in really helping women and couples. Because I think that if you can change a couple, you can change the world, because it trickles down to the family and everything else. So
I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So
Thanks.
From like a logistical standpoint, what did you have to do to be able to make space to go back to school? It sounds like there was a break between your undergrad and your graduate degree, I assume. How long of a space was that?
Yeah. So I kind of took things very slow. I went to a lot of different countries and studied. I served an LDS mission. So it was a while. I was probably from 5 years-ish of a break. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
And did you always know you were going to go back and get higher education?
I wasn't sure. I had an experience where my husband and I met and we moved to Russia for a couple months, for 4 months. And when we came back, I was like, I guess my purpose in life is to have children. And I don't really know if I need to have a higher education. And that's what I had been told. And I was like, that's going to bring me so much fulfillment and purpose. And I got pregnant 7 months later, and my husband was working full time, and I was miserable. And I was super depressed. I think everything from my life beforehand had kind of hit me, and it was a struggle. So I did my associates online. But I just needed people. And then we decided after he did summer cells, he came home and we're like, I got to go back to school. And he's like, me too. Where should we go? And we actually applied for BYU Hawaii. And that's where we ended up going. And
with a new baby, or while you were pregnant?
Yeah. She was 6 months when we got there. So that was a little scary. I was always trying to protect her from the sun.
Yeah.
And so I had her, and he bought actually a business while he was in Hawaii. So he was able to do a lot of stuff from home. And so I went to school and he went to school, and he had a business, and we had a 6-month-old, and we just trudged along through that process, but it worked out really well.
That's amazing. I would assume that you'd have to have a lot of partnership to make that work.
Yes. Yes.
Speaking as from my experience of my husband basically being gone for the first couple of years of my children's life because he was in a really crazy job. And I was like, oh, I'll just be the stay-at-home parent. And I just did everything myself. Like, that is amazing that you were able to go to school and do that and still be able to move forward in your life. Yeah. Okay, so you had a baby in school, graduated how old was your daughter?
So I had 2 kids in school. I had my son, my second to last semester. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So we have two
babies,
and
you graduate, 5-year chunk of time goes by. What brings you back to school?
So this was actually the 5 years chunk of time was before my baby, my first.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So I was like I went to school 18, and I didn't end up going back till I was 23, 24. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was kind of in between there. Yeah.
Very cool.
Sorry, that wasn't clear.
No, that's fine. That's great. You did your own track. And so you're pursuing your degree to be a therapist. Tell me about how you're managing that as a parent, as a wife, as all these things that you are how are you managing to do all of those things? And I know it's unfair. We don't ask men these questions, but I actually really need to know how other women are doing this. Like, what can I let go of and still have my priorities be priorities? So I'm really not trying to ask a sexist question, but I need to see this in my life, and I know other women do too. So if you can speak to that, it would be really helpful.
Yeah, I feel like you preference that because it's so true. We don't ask men, but it's okay because we do have all the pressures on us, Yes, and I think it's important to come from that real perspective. Yeah, it is. It is different. And especially for me, in my mind, I was I have to I need to be a mom. I want to be there for my kids too. So for me, I did a lot of preparation work to make my life work. And it really kind of bothers me when people ask me this question sometimes because they're I tell them oh, my husband actually works from home. And they're oh, okay. You have it easy, type of thing.
No,
and it's no, I created that hard. Me and my husband.
Big.
Yes, we did not everything that I have in place to make my life work was premeditated. And I think that's really important to understand. I love the idea of some people kind of work their life around a job. We worked our job around our life. And I think that's a really important key. So what we did was I insist, I was you have to find a job where you can work from home. And he owns his own businesses and he's really good at business. And I know not everyone has a partner who can kind of go in that route, but I was really lucky in that sense. And then we decided actually to move to Utah for the purpose of having family support, if that makes sense. It wasn't because we love the state, which I know, sorry if that's offensive to someone, but it was because we really, really wanted to be near a family. I have 9 siblings and none of them are married, and they come and watch my kids when I need it. Like I said, my husband works from home. I have a lot of built-in support because we made sure that our family was going to have that. And so that's how I'm able to do everything. And also my school, I chose a specific program where it's only 2 days a week as far as going into classes or class. And a lot of stuff, we've started seeing clients and we have to do observations of other people doing therapy sessions. And that takes a lot of time, but it's because I have that built-in support that I can manage it all. And yeah, go ahead.
So did you choose a grad program then that was going to be near family for that reason?
Yeah, I did.
Same kind of, it's the same idea. School is your job, so school has to fit around your family life. That is great. That's just a perspective shift, but
it is, because a lot of people don't see it that way. And I think it really messes them up later, because women are I really want to do these things, but I have to work around my husband's job. I have to work around this life that they created where it is constraining. And I honestly believe women can have it all, but I do think it takes premeditative thought to make that happen.
So what is it all to you? What does that mean in your life?
Yeah, I think it means having a great relationship with your children, being present with your children, having like your children aren't like crazy hooligans, you know, but they're getting the support and the love that they need from you. I think it means having a great relationship with a spouse, being able to go to school or work, having your career, and also having like time for yourself as well. And for sure, not all of them are like all the time, but I still feel like I enjoy all of those things in my life.
So you're present when you're with your kids and when you're with your husband, the health of your relationships, and then your ability to create or contribute to the world in a way that's meaningful to you. Is that a good summary?
Yeah.
I love that. So
yeah, totally. I'm definitely not perfect at that though.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So in terms of things that you've had to maybe let go of in the way that you're organizing your life, like you chose a school because it fit with your higher goal of like your family and everything like that. I would assume you had to maybe give up certain schools that might have been better for your career or a better program or things like that. Like what other kinds of things have you decided, no, that's actually not a priority, even though it might be for other people, I'm going to let that go? Like dropping the ball.
Actually, the thing that I feel like I am not very good at and that is valuable to other people is like, social life, like fun. So for some people that might rank way up on the list where it doesn't matter as much to me. So it kind of gets on the bottom, especially right now. Like I think I could definitely be better at having more activities. Does that make sense? Like those kinds of things, which I know that that's kind of like a lame answer but some people that's really important too. But for me, it's like not, so I don't spend as much time creating an atmosphere like that.
No, that totally makes sense. It doesn't feed you the same way as all these other things do. And I know that there's a lot of things in our lives where we do it because it's expected or other people expect it of us, and that doesn't feed you. And so you can just say, this is not the season for that right now. I don't need it. So I'm going to let that go.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
A lot of social norms. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Have you gotten any feedback or judgment for other people as you are rearranging your life or maybe doing it differently than what you grew up as being the norm?
Yeah. I feel like I've had a bishop in the past who, whenever they asked what mine and me and my husband were doing after we graduate, they would only ask him. They wouldn't ask me. They'd just be like, oh, and then they look at you like, oh, you're just going to be a mom, so I don't have to ask you. But he was actually not doing anything, and I was pursuing a second higher degree. So I'm trying to think. Other than that, I think a lot of it has been myself, to be honest, is the pushback of like, I'm just me. Like, what am I doing? You know, sometimes there's been that pushback of like, this is crazy, or this is too much, or why don't I wait until my kids are older, or things like that. Or even like people from my town don't do what I'm doing and I'm alone. So I think you kind of get like, I bet you people are judging me, but it's really just myself that's judging me in that sense. So I feel like that's kind of the pushback. I've definitely had people, like I said before, call me pushy or bossy or like, why do you have to do that right now? Stuff. Yeah.
So what do you do when you get those internal thoughts that are not supportive to your actual goals?
Sometimes I just sit in them and eat ice cream.
That works.
Like sometimes I don't have always the best like coping skills, but sometimes I think back, I told you about this, that time when I was really depressed and at home. I literally was at home all day long. And I was pregnant and I was so bored. And I remember at that time, and I'm like, I know what feeds me. Like it kind of gave me this gift of knowing who I am and what I need. And I was like, I'll never let myself get to the point where I'm not getting what I need. Like that's not okay anymore. And so it kind of it's weird. This negative experience kind of gives me the motivation to keep being like, no, like, even though I may feel these things, they're not important because I know what my life is when I don't have this ambition.
And I love that. That high contrast really made it clear for you. I know for a lot of us, a lot of women, it's this like slow, like low grade irritation or loss. And so when you realize something's missing, or I need something more, or this isn't working, like it's really hard to identify that. So I think that's great that you know that, and you can say, no, I know for a fact this is what's right for me. I'm moving forward on this because I know myself, and I'm just going to do it. That's great.
Yeah.
So what supports have you have your family in place, your husband is available. What other supports have you put in place to allow your family to have this balance?
I've worked really hard on reaching out to have, like, my daughter has an awesome school and friends that she can go to. And then I've made really great friends with my cohort members as well.
Awesome.
So that's kind of where I get my social. I'm like, I don't have time for both, but I'll put it all in this package. And I think just like another huge support is me and my husband. We both do therapy, and that's huge mental support. Like, we go to therapy, and it's like really helpful to have an outside source that, like, when we're like, this is crazy, they can like help give us the tools and stuff that we need to keep going.
So is that individual therapy or couples?
We actually do both, because I got kind of crazy and obsessive. And I actually don't know if I'd recommend it if you're going to grad school in therapy, because it's like
a lot of
therapy
stuff. Do you get like in your own head, like analyzing yourself? Because I do that already, and I'm not a therapy student.
It's bad.
But it's working for you, right?
I was like, I have to take like a month break before I come back to this one, because I can't do this and everything else that I'm doing. And so sometimes I'll take breaks, but yeah, it's awesome.
That is healthy too. I love that. Do you have any mentors that you're learning from right now that you feel like are supporting you at this time?
I don't know if I am being like that they know who I am, but I definitely...
That is fine.
Yeah, I definitely have women that feed me and that help me. And like Julie Hanks is one of them, definitely, awesome. Where we met. Yeah.
Yes. That is where you posted something and tagged her, and she reposted anyway. Yes, she's great.
Yeah, I actually really enjoy Jennifer Finlayson Fife. She was kind of the one who put me on the sex therapy track a lot. And she really feeds me. I can't pronounce her last name, but do you know who, well, actually there's two. One is Esther Perel. She is a sex therapist who is really amazing. And she's actually not LDS. And so she's definitely a lot more explicit. So if you do go that route, fair warning.
That's fine. I'm good at that.
Yeah. And then, so I just have people like mentors that I like to read from, because I don't know if I would have had time specifically to meet with anyone anyway, which sounds awful, but that's kind of where I get that extra, like, I want to be them someday. And so I just learn from them now.
I love that. I learned from Rachel Hollis that your 5 people who influence you the most don't actually have to be in your life. They can be an author, it can be a podcast, it can be someone you follow online, it can be a teacher. I think those are fantastic people to allow to influence you.
That's comforting.
Yeah, it is for me too, because I'm striving for more of that social world that can support me and feed me, but we're all so busy. And I am a lot more direct and can be labeled as pushy like other people. And I don't always want to just sit around and shoot the breeze. Like, I really want to talk about the big, hard things. And that's not always, my friends aren't always emotionally available to do that, because we're all super busy and have lots going on. So I know I can open up a book and have someone kind of help feed me, and I can think about it on my own and kind of get there. So anyway, the combination is great, but I totally get that. What are your plans for the future? After graduation, what's your, do you have a life plan that you're looking towards?
It's like embarrassing because I do.
That's awesome. Tell me.
I'm always
someone like
open.
Me, I like it.
Yeah. It's not like I feel like some women are like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, no, I do. This is my 5 year,
That's great.
Not to put other women down. Sorry, that was not okay.
No,
but,
this is just who you are. And a lot
right.
of the times people who are very direct and know what they want are shamed when they happen to be women. So
yes,
that's okay. This is a safe space for you to do. So tell us about you.
So for me, I'm very open to my life changing because it has in the past, but what it is right now is, I obviously am going to graduate school next year. And then I plan on getting my hours. I have a couple certifications that I definitely want to get under my belt. I don't know if you have heard of like EMDR.
Yes, I love EMDR. Life changing. I've been doing that for over a year now with my therapist, and it's
amazing. I love it. So that's definitely one thing that I want to do. And then obviously get my sex therapy certification, which if I go through a specific program, it's kind of like getting another master's degree.
That's an intense program.
So
We've
it's
also
a lot.
done sex therapy. So yes.
Yes, I love sex therapy too.
There's a lot. There's a lot there.
Yes. And then on top of that, I am very interested in creating programs to be preventative.
Okay.
I want to see clients. Of course, I want to have like my clientele, but I really love the idea of helping women create partnership families, helping couples learn how to communicate, all those kinds of things. Because like I said, like that's kind of my passion of helping people come together and heal those relationships. Because if you can have a healthy family, then it just trickles out. So that's kind of where I'm going, is a lot of preventative stuff as well, like classes and things like that.
I love that. So the idea of partnership families, can you give us like a little miniature rundown of what that looks like for people who might not be familiar with that term?
Yeah. So partnership families are just the idea that instead of traditional gender roles, that we split the work, and however that looks or works for the couple, that is the best. But it's not just an isolated view of split work. It's more like, and a lot of this goes along with traditionally women have been stay-at-home moms. And then on top of that, they have to cook, they have to clean and maintain the home, where men have been able to go out and they get to go from 9 to 5 and then come home and, 1950s style, put up their feet and things like that. But it's the idea that men actually do have a say and a hand in child rearing and cooking and cleaning, and women can have a say in working and contributing financially as well.
Love that. What do you want other women to know, other people to know who have ambition and maybe are held back by those traditional roles or don't have those role models?
Yeah. I think that a huge part of myself and how I've gotten to where I am is discovering more and more about who I am and what I want. And if you have nowhere to start but learning about yourself and really thinking about what you want, a great question I love to ask anyone who's like, I don't know what I want, is like, what do you hate in the world? What makes you angry? Because when you have when you have an emotional reaction of like, oh, I hate that, you might not know like, oh, what I want to change the world, but it's like, no, that gets me going, then maybe that's a direction to start pursuing kind of those goals and to find out what you want. And then on top of that, I love what Julie Hanks says this a lot. What did you used to love to do before you were married? And I think that's great advice as well.
Yeah, I love that. I've had periods of my life where I've been depressed or anxious or just completely overwhelmed. And it feels so silly, but really what I've had to do is sit down and be like, okay, what did I used to like doing? And like literally make a list and then try and take action on one of those things. And it works. I'm living it right now. I'm doing it. I haven't figured it out, all the pieces yet, but it kind of gets those gears grinding again and moving again in the right direction.
Yeah.
So I love that. Anything else you want to share? Yeah.
I do think that if you're religious or spiritual, I do believe that we have kind of paths, not specific paths, but if we want to, we can be guided on our paths. And I'm like such a strong believer in that, because I did not want to be a therapist when I was younger. And that was not my passion. I had things that definitely play into that, but I do believe to connect to whatever that is. In Utah, I feel like there's huge religious, where a lot of us are LDS. And if that is the case, then like, I really think that Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother can guide us to where we need to go. And if we give them space to do it. And I am like a huge advocate of that, because even my school, where I am right now, was so specific, and not all areas of my life, but sometimes. And so I think if you really give them and give yourself up to that intuition, you're going to be led as well. And I wouldn't discount that. I think that's a really important part.
I love that. In your experience, do you, for you, this isn't for everyone, but were you led specifically to being a therapist, or is that something where you're like, hey, this meets a lot of the things I'm interested in, I'm going to choose this? How did that work?
For me, it was definitely a led thing. Like, I was in school, I was studying conflict management, and it's anything from like your own like inner conflict to global conflict. So there's a lot there. And I just like really was drawn to family, and I had this random recruiter come in, and I was like, hey, I really feel like this is the program I need to go into. I didn't actually get into that program, but that program led me to the program I'm in right now. It was like really random. Like, my husband was doing summer sales, and I was talking to this random girl, and she's like, oh, did you know that this program just started like a year ago? Like, just random stuff. And so for me, I did feel like it was where I needed to go. But there's been a lot of times in my life where I've done a lot of things where it was just like, this is what I want to do. And I know it can help other people too.
Love that. I know for me, one of the things that's kind of just barely clicked in my brain is that I get to choose into my experiences in my life. And I have a similar religious affiliation to you. And so my family does loom large in my roles that I want to live, my relationships that I want to have in my life. But I also can choose into other things that feed me, and I can contribute in many ways. And it doesn't have to be one role or one job or one thing that I contribute in this life, but I can just take my passion and allow it to feed me and feed the world in different ways. And that's been really freeing, to not be like, oh, my calling is to be a mother, or my calling is to have this one specific job, or to write this one book, or, something that's really finite. Like, it's very free and creative, and it's still me becoming whoever I'm going to ultimately be at the end of my life. Mm-hmm. It's just all the path I'm supposed to be on. And I have a say in that. And why is that so eye-opening? It shouldn't be that eye-opening, but it is.
Yeah. Well, and it just makes me think a lot about the principle of a lot of times we're taught in a very black and white, right? Like, even with that question, it's like, I can have a path, but I also can not have a path in a lot of ways, Yeah. And it's like, I do feel like so much of our life is becoming comfortable with the gray and sorting that out and deciding what you want. And why on earth would we be given a voice or a passion if it was only one thing that maybe we didn't even want to do?
Or you're just supposed to sit on it for your whole life and not speak up. Yeah. You're supposed to just learn to not, ever be called bossy. Like, I am rejecting that in my life right now. I'm going to say what I want to say, because this is how I was created, and this is how I'm going to show up in the world. I'm not going to spend my life managing myself to be smaller to make other people comfortable. So
love it.
I'm glad that we get that for each other. Just in closing, hearing all about your life and your goals, is there something at the end of your life that you want to be remembered for or have contributed? Have you thought about that, like from the end looking back?
Yeah, I've actually thought about this a lot. I don't know if I mentioned it in this interview, but my dad passed away when I was 16. So death has always been a thought of like how this works. No, it's totally good. But for me, and being able to that firsthand of like what he left, it really put it into perspective that really the biggest things that you can leave are the relationships or the people that you've helped. And it reminds me of that quote by Mother Teresa. And it's so, I'm about to get really cheesy here, but it's like
That's
so
okay.
what
Go
I believe. Just that idea of like, you don't have to, love a lot of people, but you can love one person with like great love. Mm-hmm. And I just believe that so strongly. Like, when I think about what I'm doing, what fuels me the most is that idea of people who are suffering that don't have the tools that I have, and mothers or women who have felt suppressed in their life or felt like they can't do anything. Like those kinds of things, I want to be remembered for helping them gain the tools or the healing that they needed to accomplish what they want to do.
I love that. What an amazing goal. And I feel like you're on your way to doing that. So congratulations.
Hope so. We're getting there.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us today, Sarah. Where can people find you if they want to keep following your journey?
Yeah, I have a Instagram that you can currently go to called Really Cool Tips. And it's like COLES. Yeah, Really Cool Tips. And that's where I put a lot of my stuff. And I'm posting like a lot of awesome therapy tips. And I would definitely check that out because you never get that perspective of like a student. You get it like from a therapist who's established and already kind of concrete in their goals. And so that is where you can find me.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes and link up to that. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy, busy life to talk to us today. It's been really great.
Thank you. This has been awesome.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for joining us today. The Women of Ambition podcast is a Big Round Schoolhouse production, edited and hosted by me, Alyssa Calder-Hume. For show notes, please visit BigRoundSchoolhouse.com. To contact us or to suggest an interviewee, email Alyssa at BigRoundSchoolhouse.com or message us on Instagram at Women of Ambition Podcast.